Mortgage stress reaches a decade high. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's check out this article from the Money magazine, of all places, discussing, well, actually not of all places, this is probably the perfect magazine to be discussing this issue. Mortgage stress. Okay, now, before we go through that, I just want to draw your attention to a definition. And do I have housing? There we go. That's the last topic I looked at. This is the definition for housing stress. It's typically described as just lower income households that spend more than 30% of their gross income on housing costs. Now, mortgage stress would be, well, when a lower income household is spending more than 30% of their gross incomes on their mortgage costs. That's one definition of it. There are others. Martin North looks at incoming and outgoing cash flow, and essentially, it's kind of if you're screwed. If too much is going out, then it's coming in. That's kind of, I think, is the best approach, to be honest, rather than the 30% rule, because it feels outdated, particularly when people have had to save such huge deposits. So let's check out this article and see what they're defining it as. So, after a month's reprieve, the Reserve Bank Board has returned to rate hiking mode, lifting interest rates by 25 basis points at its May meeting. And for those of you playing at home, I will bring up the cash rate chart, and you can see that we're heading towards 4%. Now, that's a very drastic delta change, isn't it? Look at that. Look at that. Crazy. But you have to understand, we all knew 0.1% was an artificially low temporary rate. I think the problem is here, the media's interpretation of no rate rises until 2024 is what got the headlines. And we saw yesterday how the media, the reporting, the experts, the forecasts got it wrong again. And the RBA continued to raise rates. You know what will happen, regardless of the outcome. They will go too hard. They'll go too high. Because, well, they went too low, didn't they? Okay, let's check this out. The increase from 3.6 to 3.85 means that the official cash rate is now the highest since April 2012. Like last month's decision to hold rates, the outcome of today's meeting was expected to be close, with 23 of 42 economists and experts polled by comparison website Finder before the meeting anticipating a hike and 19 expecting another pause. But with inflation data released by the ABS last week revealing the consumer price index had risen 7% over the year to March, well above the RBA's inflation target of 2 to 3%, the board ultimately agreed to act. Inflation in Australia has passed its peak, but at 7% is still too high, and it will be some time yet before it's back in the target range, the Reserve Bank Governor Philip Lowe commented in his post-meeting statement. The board held interest rates steady last month to provide additional time to assess the state of the economy and the outlook. I think it's to have a greater psychological impact. You know, we give a break, everyone thinks, oh, that's the peak, it's coming back down, you know, it's all good. Because there are a lot of people that are quite fearful of these rate increases. So you give them you pull back on one flank, and then the cavalry comes around at the back and attacks you with another 25 points. That's what it is. While the recent data showed a welcome decline in inflation, the central forecast remains that it takes a couple of years before inflation returns to the top of the target range. Inflation is expected to be 4.5% in 23 and 3% in 25. So are we going to be seeing 4 to 5% rates until 2025? And have you planned for that? I honestly think most people are going to be okay. I think what will happen is you'll see a decline in discretionary spending. It'll be pulling little Jimmy and Timmy out of private school, going to the public school and finding other ways to save costs. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be the people who bought during the mania of the COVID property boom that stretch themselves too far. And my understanding is, and this is comments from viewers who are accountants, one said, he asked his clients how they got into this mess. Their goal was to borrow big to get what they wanted, and then just to hit it hard until 2024 as fast as they could, but they didn't have enough time. Looking ahead, there's more of a consensus on the direction of the central bank's next move, with 76% of those same experts polled by Find expecting the RBA to stay its hand when it meets in June 6th. Okay, so we're expecting, the experts are saying there won't be a rate rise. I mean, a lot could happen in a month. Whatever the sentiment, whether that sentiment proves correct, obviously won't be known for a month, but Lowe and the board appear to be remaining open to all courses of action. Well, yet they've said they're going to increase rates. They're going to address inflation. Some further tightening of monetary policy may be required to ensure that inflation returns to target in a reasonable time frame, but that will depend upon the economy and the inflation. So here we go. This is the crux of this article. Mortgage stress levels highest in a decade. For Australian homeowners with a mortgage, the relief that came with last month's rate pause, I can't imagine. I think the only relief could be psychological. Will likely be replaced with a sense of the inevitable as they wait for lenders to pass on today's increase. And this article was written yesterday. And I haven't checked. I'm recording this early in the morning. I haven't checked to see if there have been any increases yet. It's a feeling many will have become familiar with since the Reserve Bank made the first of its 11 recent rate hikes back in May 22, during which time the official cash rate jumped from 0.1 to 3.85. And mortgage repayments have soared. Australians with an average loan size of 586 will be forking out 14 grand a year. Yeah, we've heard about this all the time, and we've looked at it on the channel here. The biggest issue is going to be, or the most exciting one, let's say, will be the mortgage cliff. Hang on, let me bring up interest rates rising, or the cliff of going from 1.99 up. So you went from 1.99 to 644. You're looking at a 70% increase in your repayments, everyone, depending on which bank you go with, what deal you get. That's the difference. So, there's your 16 grand right there, increase in repayments from 24 grand a year to 41,000 a year. And interest only, which is an option for some people, is dependent on your loan to value ratio. So if you bought your property, I don't know, at the peak, and then you've shaved a little bit off, you've lost 10%, your LVR may not warrant, or may disqualify you from getting that option. And then you've got all the APRA buffers that mean it's really bullshit in a way if you think about it. You could refinance your loan to get it cheaper, but the buffers calculate the interest on a 3% higher rate. So you could be paying a higher rate and can't get down lower because the buffers are different now. This is what you have. This is how we have such a regulated market. This is why the banks are experts at managing risk. So, and here we go. This is exactly what we're seeing here. At 2,600 to 3,700, nearly 3,800. So you got to find another $1,200 a month to meet your repayments. And for some people, that's going to be absolutely no problem. For others, it's going to be pretty tough. So, given the steep increase in repayment obligations, it's hardly a surprise that more Australian borrowers are finding themselves struggling with their mortgages. In the 3 months to March, 1.3 million mortgage holders, 27.1% of the total share, were deemed to be at risk of mortgage stress, according to research released by Roy Morgan last week. For context, that's the highest number of borrowers recorded by Roy Morgan since the start of the GFC in 2008. When there were a share of 1.37 million in stress, the largest proportion of overall borrowers since 2011. And today's 25 basis point rate hike set to flow onto borrowers in the coming weeks. Roy Morgan is expecting the number of mortgage holders in stress to increase to a record 1.52. Okay. And thank you, Tom. That's a good article. But here's the thing. Let's have a talk about this one, guys. Now, just being in stress doesn't mean you're defaulting on your repayments. It just means you're under stress. Now, it doesn't mean we're gonna see forced sales. There's another article I want to look at. Forced sales are not materializing. Supply is down. It's low for the housing sector, as in sales. So our ability to meet supply is already hamstrung by the number of builders going under. But until we start seeing an uptick in forced sales, the stress is just going to be there. And that will manifest, not in forced sales, it'll manifest in a decline in discretionary spending. So we need to keep an eye on consumer confidence, discretionary spending, what people are going out shopping. That's essentially what it is. That's where you'll start to see the hit. And then it'll be extracurricular activities where people will start to save money on. It'll be all those little luxuries that ironically pick up during tough times. It's the smaller luxuries that people turn to more, like a woman will buy a nice lipstick or, a cheap item and things like that. So, guys, this is not a sign that everything's collapsing. It's a sign that, tougher times are coming and people will have to prepare. Now, here's an interesting thing, a bias I think we see in the media is a lot of negativity, and we'll see a lot of sob story news articles. They always come out. It's because they get the attention. Now, I have a theory that this slant towards the negative and the sob story tends to bias our opinion of the average Australian's financial capabilities. I think the average Aussie is probably a lot better than the media will lead us to believe. What do you reckon, everyone? Let me know your opinion on that. I'm trying to find some data on that topic because I think I don't think it's as bad, particularly now when you have access to so much more information. Just binge watch Dave Ramsey for a week in the car while you're driving around and make some financial decisions. Read Pape's book. You can find so much good stuff now that you couldn't before. You know what we need to look for? Here's an interesting one. Is there an index? I'll need to look up and do some searching. But let me know if you can point me in the right directions in the comments. If there's an index of room rentals, like shared rooms, spare rooms, if that starts ticking up. Because that's a solution to mortgage stress right there. I mean, think about it. What are we looking at here? Another $1,200 a month for a mortgage. Now, in my area, south of Brisbane, you've got suburbs around me, Acacia Ridge there, working class suburb. Rooms are going, furnished, $250 a week for one room. So there you go. There's your $250. There's your $1,000 extra for a mortgage. So maybe we'll start seeing more people rent out an extra room to make ends meet. And I bet you we're going to see some articles of people moving back home with their parents or in with friends, couch surfing, doing something, and renting out their whole house to keep it. I think people will do everything they can to stay in the property market because once you get in, that first hurdle, it's such a nightmare. In some ways, that's the hardest bit than just living a shit, crappy, poor life for a while and just toughen it out and make and do. I'll go without that, I'll go without that, I'll go without that. What do you reckon? Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one, guys. Am I overly optimistic with the resilience of the Aussies, or has the media painted us as all too soft and weak? And maybe this is just the first time we're doing it a bit tough. As always, thanks for watching. Check out Heise BIM and Heise Does. And if you're a fan of the channel and enjoy the content and things I discuss, you can support us on YouTube or Patreon, use our referral links, buy our pocket squares, or call us if you need an architect. Now, here's the thing. Supporting any content creator, it's a luxury. Don't feel obliged to do it during these times when things are getting tough, okay? And when you'll hear the sob stories from all of them, it's a luxury item, guys. You don't need to do it. Just watching the content is enough. So don't feel obliged to, okay? Take care, have a great day, and I will see you in the next episode of HeiseSays. Bye for now.